Good morning, David.
Christopher, good to see you. Are you well?
Oh, couldn't be better. The
Good.
sun's nearly shining, apart from a bit of fog. The rain's gone. Spring is sprung.
How many miles
Primroses
do
in
you
the
live? How
garden.
many miles do you live down the road from me, Chris? If the sun is shining, I'm coming down to you quick. We'll do it in your garden. I'm looking at grey, leaden sky at the moment.
Oh, I'll put the kettle on then.
Good. You put the kettle on. I'll be down in 2 seconds. Dear viewer, just hang on while I drive down to Chris. It'll take me about 10 minutes. All right, don't go anywhere. All right. I know, Chris. I'm with you.
Your study hasn't changed.
Oh, yeah, that's one of these screens at the back of me to make people feel at home. You know.
We've got a green screen today.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what they call it, isn't it?
A what?
A green screen.
Oh, is it really? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I was introduced to a new term by my good lady wife yesterday of a mood board. I never knew what. Do you know what a mood board is?
That sounds like something I might get myself in trouble if I try and say something.
I think you
If
would.
it's your wife who told you.
I did it. I did as well. So, if you know what a mood board is, perhaps you could email into us and tell us, because I'd hate to disappoint my wife. I disappoint her enough as it is, but to disappoint her over her idea of a mood board, I'm going to have to look it up on the internet and find out. But there we are.
My imagination is you've got a board on the wall and you just write, I'm happy, I'm sad.
It's a board, definitely a board. I don't think that is quite the way from what she understands them to be. It's about dreaming about things that we may, want for the future going forward, like a new kitchen
the sunlit uplands.
Like our kitchen, a new kitchen at our house in Punnell, for instance. That seems to be I think what she was trying to persuade me to enter into the mood of.
Oh, okay. So a new kitchen in Punnell would put her in a good mood. So therefore, it's a well-being.
Chris, will you stop trying to get me into even more trouble than I can get myself into? Don't dig any more, please. I can get myself into enough trouble. And
if I live my life in trouble, you can as well.
Yeah, true. As we're talking about wives and potentially mothers or whatever, it's Mothering Sunday.
Oh, what a segue.
Look at that, Chris. Mothering Sunday this week. And that's another thing where clergy can often get themselves into a kind of upset and worry at times. But should I read a bit from John's Gospel for us?
Go for it.
So John's Gospel from chapter 19. Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home.
It's a different era of what we see as motherhood, isn't it?
Mm.
Because the image we have of motherhood is a mum looking after children and babies,
mm-hmm.
and the mum doing all the work.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a bit further on down the life of John looking after the mother. Or is that an incorrect interpretation, do you think?
No, Chris, I was meant to just say that we do have to be very careful, dear viewer. I am very aware that you have two men who are talking about motherhood, which could, we hope not, cause some despair. Because we try to be understanding, and we do know, don't we, Chris? After many years in ministry, that Mothering Sunday is a Sunday in the church, which doesn't particularly divide. Because I don't think it does, but it has its own sadnesses and differences of approaches, because we have many in our congregations who aren't mothers, who would love to have been mothers and haven't been able to be. We have many who perhaps had difficulties with their own mothers over years, and this whole aspect of how do we celebrate the wonderful life of mothering. How do we kind of celebrate it and keep it within the church tradition in a sympathetic way. And I'm sure you face the same problem as I have.
I think you either go two ways, don't you? You either ignore it and don't celebrate it in case you might upset anybody, and you're going to just not do it because yes, we're all we are all pastorally conscious that people, like as you said, have those problems, and not everybody's had this idyllic life that we all think and wish we had. But also, sometimes it's good to celebrate, and people can celebrate even if it didn't apply to them, the fact that it's a good part of society for those that did have a good time. And we all need somebody who puts their arm around us and cares for us and things. I always find it funny. My two boys, they still phone up, and if they want to know something, they'll speak to me. If they want a bit of tea and sympathy, they speak to mum.
Excellent.
And mums still do that job. And even if now I know something, my two boys are about 30, they know how to do most of the stuff, so I don't get the calls anymore. So I've done my job because I've passed that on.
Well, I would like to think, Chris, that you've both done your job equally well, personally. Julia, if you do ever watch this, and I can't believe you do, but if you do watch this, please note I'm standing up for your mothering skills. And I know really and truthfully, Julia, that you have a difficult job mothering him as well. So there we are. But what I've always thought of, particularly with that passage, and I know we could have used a shorter passage, just as equally a shorter passage from Luke's Gospel about Mary. What always strikes me about the relationship of mothers to Jesus, because that's where I try to keep it at. What is the relationship of Mary to Jesus, or what is Jesus within that relationship of God and Mary? Is the wonderful way of service that Mary was happy to enter into. Well, I say happy. I don't know whether she was, but she didn't refuse. And yesterday, we celebrated the Feast of the Annunciation at our midweek communion a day late, because the church in Beaminster is actually dedicated to the Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. One of very few churches, Anglican churches, that in the country that actually has that feast of title. And the one thing that came out clearly from the readings and things is that Mary said, "Here am I, the servant of the Lord. Take me and use me as you do." And I've often seen mothering, and certainly I think back to my mother, of how she gave everything for us in many ways, and how she faithfully nurtured us, even at times when it hurt, I'm sure, her or she went out without herself. And we see in that passage, and certainly the one from Luke I didn't choose, the Luke passage, dear viewer, talks about how Jesus' life is going to cause a great deal of pain and suffering to Mary, doesn't it, Chris?
So, but like you say, the link there between Jesus, mothers do give everything for their children. They really do. And, mirrors right from the very start, because if you imagine Mary as a young woman hearing the angel say, "You're going to have a baby," and she said, "But I'm not married yet." And she risked her relationship, her future husband, the shame of society, etc., all of that right at the very beginning, and yet she still said, "Let it be so as you wish, God."
Yeah.
So they got that dedication there, and then you link that to Jesus here on the cross, of Jesus on the cross saying, "I love human beings, and they've put me here. This is what I am giving, in order that all people's sins might be forgiven." You've got the link of Jesus doing the same, and it's a huge message, really, from the beginning of Jesus' life, as in through Mary, of actually we give ourselves for others. We give ourselves to care for other people. Mothers give themselves to care for little children, big children, old children. And, I was just talking about my two boys being 30. They're still come back to their mother for stuff. Mm-hmm. That doesn't go away.
Not at all. I mean, we all know the tradition of Mothering Sunday, or the story being that one day in the year, young girls would be allowed off from their for a while from the big house to go and visit their mother. And on the way, they'd pick posies from the side of the road to take them, because that was the only gift that they could give, and it's developed from there. And that's part of all of us, showing all of us who are children of being able to somehow try and show our own love and respect and gratitude for the way our parents have raised us. Now, my mother has been dead for 29 years, I think, this year, 28 years this year. And but it doesn't mean that every day I don't think some way of her, or acknowledge the fact that I am who I am because of what she and my father, of course, brought to my life and did in my life. And so the one thing about Mothering Sunday is that it is a good opportunity for us to show thanks for those who care for others. Now, you could have a child you've raised who you're not the natural birth mother of, but you still carried out that role. And we see many people who do that in society as well, don't we? Who look after and nurture people without that natural connection.
Quite interesting, because we had a change, didn't we, to the marriage registers that we fill out.
Yeah.
And it was. I think it's a good thing in that no longer was it just the mother and father's name on the marriage certificate. There's a mother and a stepfather and a stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
And very often, and I'm sure you meet people where actually they don't want their real mother or their real father on the document, but a stepmother or father has stepped into the role, and they want them on there as well.
That's right.
And so yes, it's a time we can think about physical mothers, but we can also think about actually who has been the most influential in looking after us as we grow up.
And that's what
For
Jesus
us.
and that's what Jesus is doing on the cross, isn't it? Even
Yeah.
at that late stage, as he's coming to the very moment of his death, he's still caring for the person that has nurtured him and loved him, and he's still there at that very moment, with all the agony that Mary must have been going through, seeing her son put to death. And he's making sure she's cared for. And we all know the kind of theologically, we know the kind of history of that Jewish tradition or Hebrewic tradition that if your husband died, then your children looked after you, or the brother of the children looked after you. She'd obviously got no one to care for her, but he was making sure that in his absence, in his death, she got someone. And John, he's supposedly, bearing in mind that John has written this passage, because John tells us regularly, isn't he, that he was the disciple that Jesus loved. He's still at this moment handing the care of his mother into someone he knows will care for her and love her.
You left me speechless there, David, after that statement.
Did I?
I just think actually almost what else is there to add to it? I mean, we can go on and on about actually how much mothers love us, how Jesus loved us, how Jesus cared, and like you say, you've got the caring being handed on.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so what's the lesson for us today?
Yeah.
We care for people. I mean, we do it as priests, we do it in our churches, we go out of our way to care and look after people, sometimes to the point of it's painful and it's hard work, but we do it, and that can be celebrated. And there's so many different takes of what we can talk about on Mother's Sunday,
Yeah.
Mothering Sunday, and
Yes.
come along to church and celebrate with us before God all that we have to be grateful for with our mothers.
Yeah, for me, it's a celebration of love, caring, and many other things. And of course, the church tradition is that we always give posies out or little beds of flowers. We're hoping to do that. Well, I know we'll do that in Beaminster on Sunday, and you'd be very welcome to come and get some. Do you remember that dreadful time in the church's life when we had to close all churches with Easter almost, or Mothering Sunday? And I just felt we had to do something for the population that were being locked up almost. So we still made posies, and we put them at the church gate. saying if you if you'd like to take one for yourself or for for your mother, please do. And somebody who lives opposite the church gate in Beaminster saw somebody come along and pick up about 15 bunches of these things and just walk off. So he chased after them up the road and he demanded they would give them back. And the lady had a real argument, and she said, "No, I'm taking them to all the ladies in my road who I know will appreciate them."
There you go.
And so whilst we had a very careful man who was stewarding our resources, what a wonderful thing to do, to think of others. And you can do that. None of us only give posies to mothers. We give them to anybody who comes, because it's a sign of our respect for human beings, really.
The men as well as all the women.
Yes, good. Well, there we are, dear viewer. I don't know whether that's helped. I hope it does. Mothering Sunday is an important day. And it is Mothering Sunday, not Mother's Day. And we've got breakfast church in Beaminster on Sunday, 'cause it's the 5th Sunday, so we're trying to get the team together. And part of the thing we do is we have a kind of opportunity for people to do some kind of work on the table. And one of the questions I'm asking is this year is how much is Mothering Sunday still the remains of the church, or has it been taken over by the secular? Don't forget to buy your mother a bottle of champagne or whatever for Mothering Sunday. You only have to see all the shops, don't you? Laden at the moment with expensive gifts, which a lot of mothers don't particularly want. I think they would rather just be remembered and
I
loved.
think there's a line in one of my sermons from a few years ago, and you never know, it might get regurgitated this year.
Yeah.
It's let's reduce all that our mothers do for us down to the value of one box of chocolates once a year.
Chris, you're a wise man. I'm keeping out of that kind of debate. But there we are. It's a wonderful thought. We will continue to give some posies. Oh, and the bacon butty if you come to breakfast church. So there we are.
That sounds like a Father's Day thing, not a Mothering Sunday thing.
But our mothers are entitled to butty. No, there are other, more. If you be careful, because I'll get told off. There are other things that people might like to eat, including, of course, the continental approach as well. So if you want to save your heart from excessive fat, there are alternative continental approaches for breakfast at breakfast church on Sunday.
Just reminded me of when I've been on holiday abroad with all those huge banquet breakfasts of all-you-can-eat breakfasts, and me trying to find all these strange, unusual foods that I'm thinking, what on earth is that, and is it edible?
That's right, Chris. I've been there.
Some people like all the different stuff. Well,
when you go to somewhere different, you should immerse yourself in the culture, shouldn't you?
You should at least try, yes.
Yes, I'm not quite sure what a lot of people in Dorset would make who go into the Black Country with tripe and onions and pork scratchings and things,
That's why I'm right down on the south coast.
Yeah, because you're a southern softy, Chris.
That's the one.
The southern softy, us men of the Midlands. Bearing in mind, I'm often told I'm from the north, and I have to remind people there is a lot more north in England than where I come from.
I thought Bristol was north.
Well, in Beaminster, Crewken is north.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the tunnel, is it? Is it the tunnel that crosses the equator?
That's it. Chris, you're going to get me into trouble again, because I know that Chris Lister will be watching today, and she lives in Crewken now. So, Chris, it's nice up north, isn't it, Chris? And I know you.
This is really, really nice. Don't listen to a word I say.
Don't listen to.
And David's really good.
Don't listen to a word he says. I'm trying to be very careful.
I just said, and David's really good, and you say don't listen.
I get undrawn and quartered. I really will if I'm not careful. Chris, it's a pleasure as ever to see you. Next week, hopefully we'll be back, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I'll see you all next Thursday morning.
Yeah. Bye now.
Okay, bye everybody.